Earth. In a time before humans and before cringe, this planet was ruled by the dinosaurs until they were evicted by an asteroid, banishing them to the Shadow Realm, never to be seen again, but giving rise to the flesh. I guess dinosaurs are flesh too, but like human flesh came with acne and stuff. And now we humans live here, but who's to say that Universal Landlord might not come knocking again with another asteroid? And by who's to say, I mean, we're all saying it. Everyone knows. Like, I'm sure you've seen the headlines. There is an asteroid heading towards Earth. Right now, it is at a 1.5% chance of hitting. Earlier today, it was at like a 3% chance of hitting. A couple days ago, it was like a 2.5% chance of hitting. All of which are actually really high. Some of the highest recorded probabilities of a huge asteroid hitting this planet in a long, long time. That dirty bastard out there, I've been shaking my fist at it for the last couple hours saying, scram, get out of here. But from what I can tell, it's not working. It is big, but it's not, a planetary killer. The size that, should it actually impact Earth, it would destroy a city. So it's a city killer, which is really big. And that's pretty concerning. So I was watching and researching, trying to figure out, well, are the odds actually as high as that seems to me? Because as a RuneScape player, 3%? Those are good odds, actually. Like, that's pretty fucking solid. So I was curious about these estimates. Now, again, it has gone down. It is no longer 3%. It's dropped to about a 1.5% chance that it impacts in 2032. The only thing that's known for sure is this asteroid does pose a threat of actually impacting, and should it impact, it won't be pretty.
Of the destruction we wrought on each other in Hiroshima and Nagasaki, this is 500 times more powerful than that, just because of the energy of it coming through the atmosphere, causing shock waves, and because of the heating, exploding. So it's like a grenade. A grenade is no bigger than your fist, but it can do damage over a wide area. This is a grenade that's 60 meters across.
This is astronaut Chris Hadfield briefly going over the destructive capabilities of the asteroid, and then it got me wondering, well, if the percentage continues to climb, is there anything we can do about it? Are we just hopeless sitting ducks out here waiting to get fucked? Like, what exactly do we have? Because I recall we have DART, which I remembered successfully did change the trajectory of a space rock. Like, we confirmed that it can be done, but can it be done to something on this scale? Or are we truly just like square one? Now we're going to need to figure out maybe some kind of defensive protocol, like maybe we send me out there with a cartoonishly large tennis racket to bat it away. Like, what do we have? So that led me to a YouTube channel, Scott Manley, who was talking about it.
So the name 2024 YR4, that tells us that, well, it was discovered in 2024. Y means it was discovered in the last 2 weeks of the year, and R4 means that they've discovered about 100 asteroids before that. But they get numbers and designators towards the end to tell just the order it was discovered in the year.
Yeah, the rock has a name, so you can curse it. It's not Voldemort. Go ahead and say its name. 2024 YR4. I highly recommend watching Scott's full video on this because he gives great coverage and goes over like exactly how they even get to these numbers, which I found very interesting. So he was talking about the observation as they were following this asteroid and looking at the orbits. He also does mention that there's going to be another encounter in 2028, but that one will definitely miss. This is something they can say with certainty. So 2032 is the main impact that the story is breaking on because as it climbed over 1% last month, it is increased even more as the uncertainty starts to get less and less uncertain.
I expect that what's going to happen is that we're going to see that we've seen basically the probability slowly rise over time. And this is a pattern we've seen in the past. What happens is you get a very large error section, and as it shrinks down, the Earth becomes a bigger and bigger part of that fuzzy error, or where it could arrive. But eventually, it shrinks down and the Earth is suddenly outside. So the probability goes up, 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 and then suddenly it drops to zero very quickly. That's probably what we're going to see.
That sounds wonderful. That'd be a great play from John Madden's book if we see that happen. Because right now we're at that point where it is going up and up and up, but it just recently has dropped down to 1.5% chance of hitting. So maybe we're in that stage where as the error is shrinking, The Earth is looking more and more outside of it and will hopefully drop to zero. But let's say it doesn't drop to zero. That space rock is real stubborn. It's an old battle axe up there. It said, let's get this farty sharded, and it only continues to go up. So it dropped today, but maybe it spikes back up tomorrow. We never actually leave that error, and as it becomes less and less uncertain, the percentage chance of it hitting us grows too. Well, Scott Manley talks about what our options could be in the case of an impending impact of an asteroid of this size. But before showing you our defensive options, whether we'd play a zone defense or man-to-man, I would like to show you what Scott said about the size of the asteroid, because not even that is fully known. We don't have enough data to know for certain the density or the size, so right now we're using some other factors to try and estimate.
It was unfortunately discovered too late to get any radar observations in on it, so we don't have a really good constraint on the size of the object. What we're doing is looking at the brightness and saying, based upon its estimated surface reflectivity, albedo, it could be anywhere from 40 to 90 meters across, which, that's a factor of 2, but because it's a volume, it's squared, and because we don't know the density, this object could be anywhere from, say, 25,000 tons to 1,000,000 tons of mass.
Yikes. 1,000,000 tons of anything is usually bad news. That's a recipe for disaster. I can't really think of 1,000,000 tons of anything that's positive. You know what they say? 1 ton, calm down, son. 1,000,000 ton, now I'm not having fun. My whole city's fucking dead. It's all done.
Which, if you do the math on that, it says each, pound for pound, kilogram for kilogram, it would have 37 times the energy density of TNT. So that means that 27,000 minimalist low-end version is a 1 megaton blast. The big one is potentially about 40 megatons. So this is, strategic scale nuclear device yield equivalent. This is something that could absolutely devastate a very large area.
Douchebag universe shooting nuke rocks at us? Like, come on. What assholes, right? I mean, pardon my French, but the universe can be a real jerk. Space sucks. I'll say it. I'll be brave. Space sucks. You can't breathe out there in space without specialized equipment. No gravity, so you can't even get blood to your wiener and jerk off if you wanted to. Like, it sucks. There's nothing good about it. And then you can't even exist peacefully on your own little space rock without another one coming your way, fucking speeding like it's late to something and causing a ruckus.
We know based upon the timing that it would have to hit along this very narrow strip of the Earth. And this is a thin section that runs from like Central America across the Atlantic. If it lands in the ocean, that's probably not such a big deal. If it lands in a relatively uninhabited part of the world, probably not a big deal. But if it did land in a more inhabited area, well, we might want to evacuate it. That's one thing you can do. When it's something of this scale and you have 4 years of warning, it's absolutely something that you can plan. You could probably constrain it sufficiently that you could decide to make sure that no one was in that area.
Unless it's Florida. You bet your sweet bippy, if Florida was in the crosshairs here, if it was like bullseye, this asteroid is going to hit Florida, you should evacuate. I promise you, bet your bottom dollar, that sweet bippy, there would be so many Florida people that are like, hey, I don't believe it. I'm going to hunker down. I can handle hurricanes. I can absolutely handle a little fucking pebble falling from space. You know what I mean? And then you'd have that shit come and it'd look like Independence Day when the White House blew up. Like, Florida got lucky if all this data stays this way, where Florida is not within that zone, because if it was, you would not be getting them out. The only way you'd be getting people out of Florida is if you literally, like, cryogenically froze them and transported them out yourself. Shit, I'm not gonna lie to you. Born and raised in Florida, never lived anywhere else. If I saw Florida in that line, like, if they had that, like, in the sniper scope, like the asteroid was gonna hit, I'd be sitting there scratching my chinny chin chin going, could I take that, you think? Do you think my house could tank that? I mean, like, Florida houses are built for, like, Category 5 hurricanes, right? I mean, this probably isn't much stronger than that, right? Like, I'd have a debate with myself. Isn't that crazy? Like, I'd actually be thinking, what if, though? That'd be a crazy stream, right? I mean, that'd be a nuts stream, and we don't know for sure. We don't know if a house can stand up to an asteroid. It's never been tested. Yeah, we've got a lot of data and a lot of common sense that says it stands no chance, but data also said I'd be 5'8". I'm 5'6". Sometimes miracles happen. You never really know, you know what I mean?
We have recently demonstrated with the DART mission that humanity now has the ability to change the orbit of asteroids. It is possible that if it was going to, say, come down over India or something where there was sufficient self-interest and money, then the orbit could be changed. And the way you change the orbit is you hit the asteroid with a spacecraft, and there's a bit of momentum transfer, and that changes the period of the orbit ever so slightly. Now, in the case of the DART mission, it was able to move Dimorphos, which was a bigger object, by the way, by about a few hundred kilometers in the last couple of years.
So there's DART that I mentioned earlier. So I am happy to hear that this would theoretically work against this asteroid should it be necessary. However, he goes on to mention that when you're changing the velocity, you're moving it along that line he already drew. So you're changing it and it'd still be within that line and it'd become a trolley problem fundamentally, as he described it, which I'm sure all of you have heard of the trolley problem before. Changing the orbit of the asteroid becomes very complicated on international levels because as Scott mentions, if it was looking to impact somewhere over India, and India then starts trying to push it east to maybe get it off of Earth, well, it's going to go over China, and they're obviously not going to be too thrilled about that, and if it doesn't fully get off Earth and impacts China, well, that's going to be a local disaster for China and also an economic disaster for the rest of the world, so it just becomes a very tricky, complicated issue. While we can change the orbit of these asteroids with DART, it becomes very difficult to assess how and where. It gets very complicated. Scott then goes on to mention that while this is the highest probability of an impact, 2032, it's not the only one. He mentions that it could miss us, narrowly miss us, and then still come back around and impact us at a later date. So Scott Manley said, and I think this is a great clip that I'd like to play you because he's 100% right, that even if this one is a miss, and even if the one after it is a miss, all of these go to zero, one day it won't.
I think we're going to find that in the next few weeks that the probability goes to zero, but one of these days it's not going to go to zero, and then humanity is really going to have to embrace the power of the DART program and change the universe around us. I'm Scott Manley. Fly safe.
I think he's 100% right on the money here. Now, of course, I'm just a smooth brain idiot. I'm not an actual smart person or anything, but I think he's 100% correct. There will come a time where we're not going to get lucky. It's already happened before. Earth has been hit by a fucking planetary killing asteroid. RIP to the dinosaurs out there. Pour one out for them. And I think we will need to really fully start to look at DART, improve it, and really go hog wild with it in order to protect the planet. And I like that statement of changing the universe around us, because I think it's going to get to that point at some stage. So yeah, I don't know if this asteroid's going to hit. Nobody knows right now. It's only estimates. Hopefully it doesn't. But I just wanted to talk about it because I've been kind of glued to the subject today. That's really about it. See ya.